Hello, everybody out there in radio land. It is once again that time of the week where we come onto your radio dial and we tell y'all what is going on here in the city of Kalamazoo, the state of Michigan, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or online at Wider FM or hold on, I think I completely messed that up. Following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University. Sorry, I got my taglines mixed up there. So I'm going to be joined by my co-host in just a few minutes here. I don't know. There's barely any news to go around or to talk about. I guess there was an election last week. I don't know if any of y'all were paying attention to that, but I guess we'll find a few things to talk about with that. Um, Before Lawrence hops on, though, I wanted to talk about just a couple of stories that may have kind of flown under your radar during the election cycle. Um, this one, this is this is a story from Michigan Advance, talking about some consumer protection laws that are, basically have been taken to court, and it's another story from the Michigan Supreme Court. They've done something a little bit more supreme this time. This actually did happen a couple weeks ago, but it was probably news to y'all. We did not report on this in the show, but it's some good news. It's written by Kyle Davidson. This is from Michigan Advance. It's published on July 31st. Michigan Supreme Court sides with Nestle overrules cases curtailing consumer protection law. In a 4-3 decision on Friday, the Michigan Supreme Court rejected a lower court's decision, preventing Michigan AG Danny Nestle from moving forward with a price gouging investigation against a major insulin manufacturer. Nestle in 2022 filed an investigation into Eli Lilly and Company, looking to investigate price disparities between its branded version of insulin injections and the generic version. Nestle also filed a complaint with Ingham County's 30th Judicial Circuit Court, asking the court to determine that the investigation was not subject to an exemption in the Michigan Consumer Protection Act. Following a request from Eli Lilly, Nestle's complaint was dismissed, prompting an appeal to the State Court of Appeals and the Michigan Supreme Court when the lower court's decision was upheld. However, Chief Justice Megan Kavanaugh and Justices Noah Hood, Elizabeth Welch, and Kimberly Thomas, all nominated by Democrats, agreed with Nestle's arguments that two previous court cases, Smith versus Globe Life Insurance Company and List versus Lewiston Richards Incorporated, had improperly interpreted the exemption, preventing the Michigan Attorney General from taking action against companies for deceptive business practices and price gouging if that business holds a license or other authorization from a state or federal agency. In an opinion authored by Hood, the court overturned its decision in the two previous cases and remanded the matter of Nestle's investigation back to the 30th Circuit Court for further proceedings. The Michigan Consumer Protection Act was once the envy of consumer protection efforts across the nation, and today we can once again claim that mantle with these two abhorrent decisions off the books, Nestle said in a statement. Justice Kira Harris Bolden, writing in a dissent joined by Justices Richard Bernstein and Brian Zara, the lone Republican nominated judge, argued that the Attorney General lacked standing to bring the claim. State Senator Sam Singh, a Democrat from East Lansing, who has introduced legislation to bolster the Michigan Consumer Protection Act, also cheered the decision, calling on the Republican led House of Representatives to pass his Senate Bill 134. In a statement, a Lilly spokesperson said they were disappointed. Oh, boo hoo hoo. Oh no. Anyway, you can find that article for yourself at Michigan Advance. Again, that's Michigan Supreme Court sides with Nestle, overrules cases curtailing consumer protection law. And yeah, overall, this is a good thing. You know, we often talk on our program about the immunity/impunity that these corporations have from these types of laws, consumer protection laws in particular. One of the first things the Trump administration really started doing when they got into office was to, claw back, the Consumer Protection Agency that was kind of founded in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. So again, these billionaires, these corporations, if they had their canard, wouldn't be laws like this on the book. I know it sounds like kind of dry reading talking about these court decisions. It's not quite as exciting, but it is an example in its own way of working class power. It shows that, again, we have the power to put people in positions to uphold these types of laws, which at least on paper do offer us a layer of protection. Now, of course, there's also the second layer to it. Are these laws actually enforced? And that is a whole other subject altogether. Often, what we see, especially from more kind of centrist Democratic administrations, get it on the books, but then the buck kind of stops there. You don't kind of put the resources behind it to be as thorough as it needs to be. Of course, Republicans have demonstrated how those particular things can always get worse and always get more underfunded. So, anyway, some good news. We will kind of track this as it develops, and kind of especially the Eli Lilly case. Dana Nessel doesn't have too much time left in office. We're kind of running down the clock. Maybe they can do some things, some positive things while they're still there. Maybe make up for harassing a bunch of kids, protesting genocide. But I guess we will just have to uh, hurry up and wait to find out on that. Another story I wanted to hit on. Um, this one is actually at the national level, and it's kind of close to me, home to me, and I didn't want to leave it uncommented on. This is some common dreams, and it's talking about the vaccine schedule. Um, so my mom and my brother were both huge autism advocates their entire adult lives. My brother basically his entire life. Both sadly have passed on. But I hope, I really, reading the story, I think back to their legacy. And one of the things that was very toxic in a lot of autism circles were these conspiracy theories revolving around vaccines. And, both of them, they follow the science and it's like, this isn't a thing. And they both kind of refer to it as like kind of the theory of really desperate people when they are dealing with some of the most intense behaviors from autism. They cling on to it as some sort of white whale that they can chase after. And con artists like RFK Jr. like to take advantage of that. So I'm just kind of summarizing. There's a full article from Common Dreams we will link to in the show notes. But for those of you who don't know, basically the Trump administration changed up the vaccine schedule, which a lot of experts have said could actually cause a lot of harm to children. Protect Our Care senior advisor Ann Shoup said, pushing parents to spread out life-saving vaccines over time is guaranteed to increase kids' exposure to these very harmful diseases, including the simple reality that follow-up appointments will be missed. If Trump's baseless, science-free decree is followed, the end result will not be fewer children with autism, but far more in the ER or even the morgue. Whether or not state health departments follow Trump's ignorant guidance, the official proclamation from the highest level of power will have a further chilling effect on vaccination rates across the board. All Trump is doing is fanning more unfounded fear, pressuring a further drop in vaccination rates, and welcoming a resurgence of preventable diseases once thought eradicated. For the anti-vaxxer in chief, the current record-breaking measles crisis is apparently not on a grand enough scale. Again, we will link to that show in the show notes. And to paraphrase my brother, the idea that vaccines cause autism is, of course, a bunch of pish posh. Okay, I think we're going to take just a quick little break. When we come back, my co-host Lawrence is going to be joining us. And well, there was an election last week. You might hear us talk about it. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You could also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo uh, podcast you can find on most um, podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution.
Hello, hello, hello,
All right.
hello,
Oh,
hello,
yeah.
hello.
Hold on.
We gotta get some hip hop instrumentals. We gotta get some hip hop
Hello.
instrumentals.
Hello, everybody. Hey, what's up? We're back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. I'm joined now by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing today?
I'm good, fam. How are you?
Oh, good. It's been a
Still,
good week.
I'm. Yeah.
It's been a good week for progressive politics and all that stuff. Uh, so,
Yeah.
mhm,
Still a little under the weather, so I'm zooming until I can
mhm.
feel better.
Well, that's quite all right as long as
Yeah.
share some analysis about again we're mostly going to focus again media ciphers. We're going to talk a lot about how the media has responded to the election. I think first though, you brought this
Okay.
up and I'm glad you did. We didn't really touch on this last week. You're really hyper focused on the primary, but
Oh yeah.
I'll just kind of hand it to you. You can explain.
Oh yeah, yeah. First of all, there are six primary states that's going on today. I mean, we're gonna spend a lot of our time talking about the primary, especially because the late but not so great Lindsey Graham seat is will be up in South Carolina, Alabama, Kentucky, Montana, South Carolina, Vermont, Wisconsin. Shout out to Francesca Hung. She's definitely going to win that, and they're going to freak out more about her and Hassan Piker.
Yeah.
We'll talk about we're going to talk about
Hassan
that
Piker or
later.
Abdul, or I mean, if you listen to the media, they're the same person. But
Yeah, 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 yeah. We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna get to that. But um, we're in August. Happy Black August. If you don't know anything about Black August, this is a tradition that's been going that goes back into the 70s, giving honor and giving honor to not just Black political prisoners, but Black liberation and Black resistance groups and movements and moments, learning, reading, learning, educating, and then continuing the work of said movements. Um, it actually started like so for those who may not have know about people like Asada Shakur, people if you don't know about some of what our government did to other Black Panther leaders and affiliates, if you've never read any of Kwame Ture, or formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, any of his literature, if you've never read anything about from Angela Davis, Women, Race, and Class, like that's one of her best books outside of Freedom is a Constant Struggle. Um, you have Long March to Freedom from Nelson Mandela and others. You know, saying there's Souls of Black Folk. There are too much literature out there for you if you have not heard about Black August, and there's too much literature out there to understand um, uh, Black liberation, just liberation in general, and how the DSA, the DSA, and how modern figures draw from that well, draw from their that understanding and those traditions, and how we should be continuing these things moving forward. Uh, there's a number of books. There's about 13 books that I can think
yeah,
of off the top of my head. We're gonna make sure we put them in the doobly doo below to make sure that y'all check them out and read them. But yes, this month of August, read some Black literature. Read some Black literature. read some Black revolutionary thought. One of my favorite books is from W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folks. It's a fantastic book. I can't recommend that enough. If you've never read any James Baldwin, like The Fire Next Time or anything of the sort, um, yeah, yeah. There's too many to name. I can continue to go on, but I just wanted to make sure that when we are on this podcast, to quote Consciously, who's also a political commentator and educator. Education is elevation, and
Mhm.
we cannot get to where we want to go if we don't elevate. So that was
And
my two
I would
cents.
just respond highlighting a couple things. You know, one of the big kind of what's the word? Not inspirations or one of the big reasons Black August celebrating, you know, the Attica uprising, which was on August
Yes,
10th, and George
yes,
Jackson, who was a Black Panther at the time. I always tell people, Blood in My Eye is essential reading. For anybody on the American
yes.
left, especially if you're an American Marxist. I also think of, you know, internationally, this was also um, when Thomas Sankara and his Pan-Africanist Marxist revolution took over in Burkina Faso back in 1983. It's a kind of you know, you look at some of the important dates in August, you almost, why wasn't August Black History Month? You know, you have to,
Yeah,
yeah.
it still is.
No, it
Technically,
is, yeah,
that
yeah. Hmm.
we're making it. Yeah. If you talk thinking about, thank you, Thomas Sankara's women's liberation and the African freedom struggle. That
Mm,
book is amazing. If
yeah.
you have
Hmm.
not read it, it is fantastic. It talks about it talks about some of the speeches that took place in 1987, um, and some of the work in liberation in that time, and also understanding. And this is the thing that I want multiple people to understand, because you talked about Pan Africanism. The reason why uh the Black Panthers called themselves internationalists was the is comes from the understanding that our struggle in America for liberation and freedom is also the same struggle across the globe. And we need to have international solidarity and partnership with those who are like-minded like us, who are fighting for freedom, justice, and equality. Because the people that we are fighting against, like Palantir and others, like Geo Group and Core Civics and all those other groups, they're the same people who were a part of putting Gaza in the open air prison. They're the same people who are a part of the extraction of minerals and wealth from African countries. They're the same people who are a part of the private prisons here in America. So the
Hmm.
same organizations that are damaging and are a part of the oppression of others across the globe will inevitably come to us. And we
Yep.
need to have solidarity and have understanding and have partnership, not just with our own bubble, but with people across the globe as well, who are also fighting for freedom and liberation.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but there's a famous quote. I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but you know, colonial or fascism is colonialism brought home. You know, it's like
Yeah,
the, yeah, it's kind of, it's a form of blowback. You know,
yeah.
with, yeah, those technologies that are tested out on people in Gaza, on you know, people in the
In
global
Darfur
South.
and in Sudan
Yeah.
and in Darfur, um, the fact that Israeli politicians in Israel were calling African immigrants to their country insects and parasites, no different than what Germany called Jewish people when during the time when they was putting them in ghettos. So like,
Lawrence,
yeah.
are you suggesting Israelis might be racist? That sounds very anti-Semitic.
No,
Talk about
I'm just
that.
saying that
Uh,
we during this month, during the month of Black August, take some time Take some time, uh, uh, look up some literature. We're gonna put some stuff all in the doobly doo. If you haven't read the biography of Malcolm X, if you haven't read Where Do We Go From Here from Martin Luther King, if you haven't read anything about neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, if you haven't read any of these books, take some time, connect with some people, and do so.
Hmm. I should
Yeah.
try to. We should put like a reading list on the website or something.
We
Yeah.
have we've talked about it for a long time. We just haven't done it, and we are going to. We need to make sure that we have a book club and make sure that we are doing so. We are actively communicating
Yeah.
um, and doing
Oh,
so.
actually, at around 1 o'clock, we're going to be talking to somebody who is part. Well, I don't want to just part of the People's Library of Kalamazoo. One of the organizers
Yes,
of the. Yeah, at 1 o'clock, we're going to be joining one of the organizers of. There is a screening this weekend of I Am Cuba. Um, and to kind of, as a segue to talk about the election, one thing I will say, we've been doing this show for like 10 years, and probably the biggest difference in progressive politics writ large is there is a larger focus on kind of internationalism, be it like kind of the recognition of Zionism or the plight of Palestinians or the plight of people down in Cuba. You do see a lot more, or even, Abdul's campaign really framing the idea of like these are the impacts of American imperialism. It's like we drain, the government is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Paul is the U.S. military, and Peter being the American people. Who again we get snipped to the social safety net, while $800 billion goes to empire and the management of empire. Um, Okay, so with that, there was an election uh, last week.
so
Some of you may have
so
heard about it.
yeah, some of y'all may have heard about the election that took place. Man, we uh Working Families Party, Working Families Party is up, is definitely swept, and that was awesome. Um, many DSA Democratic DSA candidates won. Not everybody that I wanted won. We there was some losses. Cori Bush lost to Wesley Bell. She was outspent around 20 to 25 to 1. Um, they spent about $8 million in her election. She only had around 185K. And
It's
again,
it's also generally it's much harder to unseat an incumbent than it is to win an open race. Um, and Cori Bush, unfairly, I should say, did carry some baggage from a lot of the political attacks from the last cycle. I mean that's just
yeah,
kind of
but
like my
yeah,
post game quarterbacking or whatever. But
yeah, but like the money cannon, dog, the money cannon is real. And
oh yeah. Yeah.
it's one thing when the money cannon is in a small section, and I think that's the other thing is that Cori Bush's race is a House race that's in a very small sector in comparison to a statewide race like Abdul's. Um, you had Abdul had $70 million spent against him.
70, yes.
70 million dollars spent against him because through APAC facility groups, and he won by 1 point.
Mhm.
Now if you hear that and you are listening to that, you listen to mainstream media will try to tell you that a majority of people didn't vote for him, so how is he gonna pivot to the center, right? And I want to tell y'all that line of thinking is how we got Trump. That line of thinking is how we got Trump. It was garbage. But yes, Abdul won. Donna McKinney beat Sharif Thanadar. Clap it up for him.
Mhm.
Clap it up for him. Will Lawrence,
Yeah.
founder of the Sunrise Movement, he won. Um, I was sad that Harris lost. Like in our county, I was sad that he
Yeah.
lost.
He did, yeah,
Um,
unfortunately. Yeah, it's just Sean McCann just has a lot of name recognition here.
yeah,
Although, I was talking with you about this before the break. I was gonna break that. So I'm always kind of a data nerd after the elections, and I always like to break down how did Kalamazoo's working class neighborhoods vote, and the way I was like, with the neighborhoods that have like lowest median income. And that ends up being like, Vine, East Side, North Side, and Edison. And I looked, and what I found really interesting is uh, Diop Harris actually won in all of those neighborhoods except for, hold on, I think, yeah, McCann won on the East Side, but Diop Harris actually won all of those other neighborhoods. In fact, if you were to add it all up, between all those neighborhoods I just mentioned, oh, also including WMU campus, which is precinct one, Diop Harris got 53% to McCann's 45. And what I find really interesting about that is, McCann, is from Battle Creek. McCann was Kalamazoo state senator for a long time. He is of and from Kalamazoo, yet he was trailing really, this far, 7 points behind in the kind of Kalamazoo's working class core. And I think it kind of lends some credence to what we were talking about last week, which is okay, if you went on polling market, yeah, you might bet on Sean McCann, but he's not doing himself a lot of favors by going in this more conservative direction for this election against Heisinger. And I think some of these numbers, pan this out. Like he's gonna get the vote blue no matter who people that come out in every election in this district, but you also need to inspire people who don't typically vote to go out and vote. And if these are the kind of numbers he's getting in his own hometown, in the working class, he's in trouble. I don't know. I don't think, if I didn't look at all of the other like working class areas across the district, but if
across
yeah,
Holland and all those
yeah,
other places.
but
I feel like Sean has. I feel like because this is a blue wave election, Sean has a excellent chance of winning.
yeah,
I
I'd say
also,
much better chance, really, like more because of, yeah, again, what the Trump administration has
yeah,
been doing, even more than like Bill Heisinger himself. But
yeah. I also want again, and I don't know Sean. I don't know him well. What I would like is, yeah, brother, we need you not to be. You, you cannot be a neoliberal milquetoast person in this age of populist rage. You have to be a progress. You have to be 10 toes down and be a progressive and stand on something. If you don't, it's going to be a problem. It's going
absolutely.
to be a problem.
Oh, and I should also mention, as far as the Senate race goes, Abdul completely swept Kalamazoo City.
Makes sense.
In
Makes sense.
with the working class neighborhoods, it really wasn't close, except like the closest election was East Side, where yeah, Abdul still won like 62 to 43. So it was, yeah, again, it was
Yeah.
it was it was not
But
close.
if you listen to the pundits, and again, uh, Stevens won rural areas. She won big in rural areas. Abdul won more uh black vote than people thought he would in Detroit and in other areas. But yeah, all the college town areas, Flint, if we're talking about Ann Arbor, Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, like those college towns, Abdul won. He won and he won big.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I want one of the big narratives we're hearing in the media post-election is how Abdul has a really huge problem with black voters. Haley Stevens, she won very thoroughly in Detroit. And I wanted to talk about this for just a minute because What we've been hearing from the James Carvilles and the CNNs and the MS Nows is how this is a factional war. This is a civil war in the Democratic Party between the DSA and the establishment. And the establishment is doing a little bit of psychological projection, I think, because they think like anybody who voted for Stevens is like lock, stock, and barrel for those type of politics. And I just want to debunk this really quick because they really played heavily on the Abdul's numbers of Detroit. And I want to point out, and this is something nobody in the mainstream media seems to be pointing out, is Detroit is also the only city in the country that I'm aware of is going to be exclusively represented by Democratic Socialists. They
Yeah,
literally elected a couple of the most, I mean, they're not like, Rashida Tlaib and Donovan McKinney are not like, radical on a big scale, but they are definitely very
they are
radical compared to
DSA.
everyone else in Congress.
Yep,
So I
they
think
are
it's worth,
DSA.
yeah, it's worth pointing out that a lot of the same people who voted for Stevens also voted for one of them. And it's important to understand that because it doesn't mean that everybody who voted for Stevens is rejecting progressive politics. Voters usually have much more like they have complicated and pragmatic reasons for voting the way that they do. One thing that progressive commentators like Hassan Piker, that the mainstream media can't stop talking about this week, is how a lot of the Stevens people are the vote blue no matter who people who they are going to go out and vote. For the candidate. Abdul. They didn't hate Abdul. They were just their second choice. And I was thinking a lot about when I dabbled or made an attempt to run for office a couple years ago. I ran for city commission, and then the next year I ran for library trustee, 2019 and 2020. And something I learned that I think is very kind of applicable to this situation. I talked to a lot of voters post-election. Some people who voted for me, city commission, and then voted for David Anderson for mayor. And I found that really puzzling because we are like, I'm a Marxist. David Anderson is he is the Foundation for Excellence, the Bills. He is their guy. We are about as opposite on opposite ends of the political spectrum as you can get. So I was like, why would you have heard this? And the reason that I got from some people was like, we needed your voice. I wanted your voice on that commission, speak for the workers. I didn't think David Benak had enough experience. David Anderson was like, he had more kind of this argument that like it would it's like bring a little bit of balance, have you know I I would David be a check on me and I would be a check on David. It was interesting, but later the next year when I ran for library trustee, I again my first election. I didn't get like a pitiful amount of votes, but like I mean, I beat the goofy libertarian Dark Park guy, so good for me. But when I ran for library trustee, I got within like a hair's much closer, much closer to actually getting a seat, and that told me that people were much more willing to let a Marxist help run the library than run the city. And that tells you a little bit about voter behavior and kind of how they think about this kind of stuff. Because I think a lot about if my 2 cents, I think probably the most effective thing the Haley Stevens campaign did was really harp on electability. Because I know you and me, Lawrence, we've been touting the polls. It was like, no, he stands a better chance against Mike Rogers. He's the more electable one. But people are very habitual, and if your experience is, we haven't had a Republican senator since the '90s. And a safe bet are these kind of mediocre white moderates. Let's keep going for that. There's something to be said about people feeling like that is the safe choice. Not to say that that's correct or that marks out the data, but I think that might explain a lot of the voter behavior. It is still the idea of these progressive politics is still feels maybe especially a lot of older voters untested. And that doesn't mean they don't believe in those ideas. In fact, they voted them into Congress, but they might have trepidations about putting that in a statewide race. So again, yeah, just kind of summing that all up. Yeah, I think it was a lot of that probably had to do with electability and not that like half of
I
the Democratic base in Detroit wants neoliberalism forever.
well, one thing that we've always seen, and we talk about this a lot, is that black voters are the when we talk about being the base of the party, that is not hyperbole. Um, when you talk about when we're talking about national elections, uh, white people, like we're talking about presidential elections and just locally, uh, white Americans have not voted in majority for Democrats since the 60s. That's something that y'all need to work out with your parents and work out with your folks.
Yeah.
When they
There's a very interesting and obvious historical reason for that, but that's
yeah,
we won't
yeah,
go into that
that's
right
a
now.
part of the conversation that we're gonna have, right? But um black voters are usually the most progressive. This is also goes is the reason why uh they are the major backbone of the Democratic Party. So when Stevens and also when you look at polling, the most popular Democrat still in America is one of the most popular Democrats in the country is still President Obama. So that deceptive ad of Haley Stevens being endorsed by the president when she wasn't, yeah, it was a nasty but effective ad. When you had black women and black people come out, James Clyburn, the Progressive Black Caucus, when they're giving you the nod and you're somebody who does not actually pay attention to politics, especially during a primary, most people are not paying attention to politics during a primary, right? But you see these leaders all backing this candidate. If you're not politically savvy, or you're not in the in you're not uh paying attention, yeah, you could be duped into voting for someone uh who the establishment loves. I'm gonna be
Especially if
nice.
you have $70 million
Yeah,
to
and
get
if
that
it's
message out.
and if it's constantly being put in every single ad that you see, every other ad is that this person has been endorsed by the most popular politician of our lifetimes, right?
Oh
That
yeah.
that is constantly being blasted to you. Yeah, you can probably get some voters to, and we saw $70 million of ads like that, outside of the other ads of Abdul being of criticizing Michelle, um, and all of those very nasty tactics. We're not gonna relitigate that. We're gonna lock in. You already saw that VP Harris and President Obama had both reached out to Abdul. So those votes are going to come in, and whatever inroads that he needs to make, uh, when he finally gets the nod from uh, Harris and President Obama, yeah, those votes are going to come in. Those votes are
I
going to come
think
in, and
Harris
then
might, let me double check. She might have actually endorsed him already,
no,
but
she called him. She called him. She called him and uh and she called him, and Obama and President Obama's called him. So are we going to see them on the trail? Possibly. Are we going to see an endorsement by them? Possibly. And I need for people who may be further to the left of us, please do not spaz out. We need to lock in. If
yeah, I
Abdul,
wanted to let
if
me talk a
if
little, speak to that spazzing out, just because,
yeah,
okay, there are some contradictions going on here, and it's so obviously, like, so Harris has endorsed Abdul, and there's also some scuttlebutt that, like, maybe he might get an endorsement from Obama. And I know for those of us who are especially like on the left, there's something a little darkly ironic about all that, because again, Harris, I mean, a lot of what kind of the populist energy that Abdul used to sweep or win the primary, a lot of it came from the uncommitted movement that was explicitly putting pressure on Kamala Harris. And there's also, of course, even Abdul's talked about looking up to Obama as this kind of inspirational figure, and I mean, of course, there's something there to be very inspiring to Muslims here in this country to have a Muslim senator, but Obama's administration also pioneered drone warfare, which killed a lot of mostly Muslim people around the world. And it's interesting because I've been hearing a lot, and I don't even know how much where this is talking about. If this is just like the online left that is like really like debating about this stuff, but like there's a very big difference between kind of like the real politics of all this and like what is obviously like moral and true and ethical and all this stuff. But yeah, fact of the matter is, Kamala is it's an important endorsement to try to get some of those wary kind of centrist people on board. And Obama, everything I just mentioned, Americans are still very nostalgic about him, and rightly so. It was the last time we had a functioning adult as president of the United
Like,
States.
say what y'all want about, as I've said this, and I will say this, and I will stand on this. If President Obama's legacy was given to a white person, we would say he was the best president of the United of our current lifetime. If President Obama's record was given to a white man, then the legacy that how we talk about his legacy, or how mainstream media will talk about his legacy, would be touted as one of the best presidents in top 5, top 10 best presidents of all time, right? Now, that's also understanding, and that's with the understanding that yes, there are a lot of flaws in his administration. But one thing that wasn't a flaw in his administration, we didn't have screwworm. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We didn't
Hmm.
have we didn't have explosive diarrhea. we didn't
Yeah.
have we didn't have planes hitting each other because we don't have enough people to man the towers at airports. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. It's interesting because again, if you're
so
anti-imperialist, it's important to understand like he was a really great, he was a good steward of the empire, and I think like one of the biggest, obviously he ran as progressive, and I'll never forget that magazine cover that had a mock-up of him looking like FDR, and obviously he was a lot more cozy with Wall Street. He ended up being way cozier with Wall Street than he
yeah.
campaigned on, which was a huge issue. It's part of I think that kind of opened up this that helped open up like this third rail of like right wing populism. But also it's important to understand that yeah, like people do have that memory of him of being somebody who was competent at keeping things together, especially we've lived through an administration and a half at this point whose sole aim was to strip the copper wiring out of America's walls. So, it's like,
Yeah. So like yeah. And that's the other part why and this is the reason why I'm telling people, hey, lock in. Lock in. Okay? Like,
yeah.
having getting getting Barry's endorsement, getting VP Harris endorsement, will help us defeat Mike Rogers, because you already seen the ads of Mike Rogers comparing Abdul to terrorists that
Oh
he's
my
gone
God,
down.
yeah. Like the
Yeah, yeah.
Islamophobia
He
has just been like off the oh
it's
God, man.
and this is, yeah, no, but this is also the reason why I'm bringing this up. Stevens, and this is why I'm bringing this up. Stevens and their campaign, and also Mallory's campaign, they're the ones that started that garbage.
It's
Same thing
true.
when
Yeah.
same thing with Hillary when it came to Barry, and that created the birther movement when they started comparing Abdul to the terrorist attack that happened at the mosque. It was like, what
Ugh,
are you
yeah.
doing? What are you doing? And again, when you're comfortable doing that in the primary, that means you're gonna give that comfortability to Rogers to do that in the general. Like,
Yeah.
what are you
Hmm.
doing? So that kind of nastiness is the thing that made me upset. But again, we take wins out here. We take wins, right?
Hmm.
And this is why I'm like, no, I need y'all to lock in. I need everyone to lock in. It's not over yet. We still need to beat Rogers. People still need to door knock. People still need to fundraise, to smile and dial. You need to talk to some of your conservative neighbors and family. Because it's not just Abdul. It's McKinney, it's Will Lawrence. And also Will Lawrence. Will, I need you to sit I need you to sit down and talk to some people on the left about not being scared in your interviews and what you're saying, because you
Uh,
walking away from the Sunrise Movement and from DSA and you kind of backpedaling is a bad look, bro.
yes. No, no.
You doing so is a bad look. Stand 10 toes deep on the stuff that you believe in. Like, look, the media's already going to frame DSA as being radical, socialist, communist.
I mean, El
You know,
Sayed, yeah, like El Sayed, he literally said on a national debate stage, like, I'm a capitalist, and they're still calling him communist. So, like, yeah, just
yeah,
they're gonna call you
yeah.
that anyway. Just
And now, but
uh,
now you're making moves. You're making moves that's going to make the chapter here not want to mess with you. So now you're not going to have the groundswell
yeah.
or actual manpower behind you. Like, stick with your people. I need for everyone on the left to understand.
Mhm.
We double down on being with our people, unless they're on some Grand Platinum type stuff where black and brown people already tell you, hey, we shouldn't be messing with this dude. But that's a different conversation. We double down on our people who have the right policies and right stances. Okay? We double down. I ain't got I ain't got time to babysit you on how we need to lock in. I just need you to lock in.
Yeah, and oh gosh, yeah, the whole thing with Will Lawrence. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So for those who don't know, he made a whole public thing about how he's no longer going to be part of the DSA or pay
Yeah,
dues.
his
Um,
DSA membership lapse. If I was him, if I was advising him, whenever someone brings up the fact that you're my DSA lap, I'll be like, look, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm broke. Running for this election costs a lot of money. I'm broke right now. When I get my money back, when I get my money right, I'm I'm gonna be back to being a part of DSA. But I can't
yeah,
right now
yeah,
because
and
I'm
the
broke.
reason he gave it was just
Yeah,
like, I
that wasn't
just
his
did it
reason. That wasn't
so
his
that my
reasoning.
my constituents
Yeah.
to better send a message that like my platform is all about what I hear from my constituents. And I that's what socialism is. It's
Yeah.
like,
Dog,
mom,
if I if he would have said, "Yeah, look, I had to let it lapse because I'm broke right now. I'm
yeah,
broke right
so
now. I couldn't pay
yeah,
for it." I would have
right.
said, "Hey, that wasn't the only subscription that I had to let go. I'm broke right now. This election took a lot of money out of me."
Yeah,
If he would have said that, I'd have been all right. I'd been like, "All right, cool." But dog,
yeah.
you
It's
ran
just
Sunrise Movement. You
yeah.
were the founder of the Sunrise Movement. We have there there is literal there is a literal uh a mass fire going on, I think in Nevada right now. Like Nevada is like it is a mass wildfire going on right now in the United States right now. That's because of climate change. And you are part of the climate change modern movement. Stay
Yeah,
on message.
it's like why
Stay
wouldn't
on
you?
message.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? That's why you won the primary. This is a
Right.
season. This is that change season. Lean into
Yes.
that, and it's
Yes.
like yeah. And it's like again, I'm just like what irritates me about that whole message is just it's like it's a very like I look. I've met Will. He's a really smart dude. He's a really great organizer. I don't know who's listening to right now, but it's insulting because like socialism literally is about listening to what the working people in your area want and doing it. It's about workers deciding what they want to do and doing it, them having democratic control. So and like when I ran, I'm going back to like 2019 when I ran, but like that was the whole thing. It's like we had a platform, but like what we were going to do if we won was all going to be based on like what are every voter that we're talking to, what do they want us to do? But that it was because we were socialists, not in spite of it. And it does
Yeah.
feel like kind of running away from it to try to like be more appealing to this nebulous middle rather than having the courage. They're saying like a lot of these people around the country are winning. We're on the cusp of Francesca Hong becoming governor, and she's not running away from it. She's polling
Right.
very well.
My thing is learn the tactics out again. I think Zoran and Abdul has mastered the art of judo flipping the arguments against you. It's like, hey, you don't yeah, look, when we talk about defund the police and things of that nature that happen in woke one and all that stuff, okay, cool.
Oh man.
Right? No, because that's been the argument, right? Being like, hey, taking money out of the budgets of police departments that are usually a lot of times half of what most city budgets are goes to the police department, but using that money for social services, using that money for community violence intervention, for gun violence intervention, for after school and mentorship programs, putting that money into mental health facilities and mental health and access and accessibility for people to get mental health services, gun amnesty, gun buyback programs, and things of that nature. These things and these programs have significantly lowered crime in multiple cities around the country. Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, New York has the lowest crime rates that they've ever had this year because of policy like that. That's what defund the police is. That's what the work that's going on right now in our state and in our country right now. That's what that's what the phrases look like. And also that takes the burden off of police officers to not be pseudo social workers, but giving them more time to do the work that they need to do to stop actual criminals.
It's
That's how
it's
you
a, yeah,
frame that.
it's about trying to expand what like people think is possible because like policing specifically, like policing is a rather new invention. Policing is not in its current form has not existed except for the last like 150 175 years, and for most of human history we did pretty well without police. And I don't know,
No,
there's just something that really rubbed me the wrong way because the whole the woke one was somehow ridiculous. Well, first of all, I can't wait for woke 2 reloaded and woke 3 revolutions. But
well, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. When we talk about woke one, right? Yeah, some of those things, we could say some things went too far. I have no problem with saying some things went too far. I also feel like um the hijacking of the term woke, especially from neoliberals who never understood what it was, and especially right wingers who now use it as the uh as the set piece for everything that's wrong in the country. Yeah, there were some things that did go a little too far, right? We could all say that,
well,
but
I would I just want to
no,
offer a quick critique. Well, okay, go
let
ahead,
me
finish,
finish. Let
finish.
me land the plane. Let me land the plane. But this is the point of it that most people are misunderstanding. We're talking about observing the world as it is and asking for accountability for those who are doing harm. That's what the majority when we talk about the origin of the word coming from the black radical tradition of being up to date and understanding how the world is working so that you are not harmed by what is going on, right? That's the origin of it. From those beginnings to now, not just asking for, but demanding accountability for harm that is being done, from the systematic harm that is being done to us, because things still hasn't changed. That's what we're talking about, and that's what we should be focusing on, because the harm is still happening.
Yeah, and I think again, I want to wrap this thought up because we got a guest waiting to jump on. But one thing that I just wanted to put a fine point on was I think that the thing that really stood out to me, referring to things going too far. I think so here's a statement about policing that is factual and true. Policing as an institution, it was comprised of strike breakers and slave catchers. They were basic, but their primary function is to maintain capitalism. And some of the things that people point to in quote unquote woke 1.0 that were ridiculous were more these sort of like liberal identity politics interventions that didn't have a lot of like, again, teeth, long-staying impact. And I think the reason I think a lot of people get mad at what AOC said and what I was a little irritated about is it lumps those things together. Things that are factual, if a lot of people might find it a bit radical, with stuff that was legitimately kind of useless, and putting it all together cauldron. It's like, oh, throw the baby out with the bathwater. It was silly. It was a bunch of silly business. And it's like, yeah, it's like, no, some of these observations are very true, and they are like foundational critiques of empire and capitalism that we shouldn't throw to the wayside because it sounds a bit too extreme or excessive.
Yes, and yes, and right. Um, I think the thing that makes me the most irritated by it is that for most people they never understood nor cared about the the foundations of that word. They never understood why people are saying it. People never grasped what was the ask. The ask wasn't for like as someone who's like or someone who's at like Chris Rob who won. He's actual prison abolitionist, right? Um, and when you listen to people like Angela Davis that talk about policing abolition and things of that nature, I can't speak for them. If you can go up and look up their literature, but for most people who, when we're talking about policing reform or even prison reform, some people are looking at or about abolishment, things of that nature. They're talking about things that like the how the Nordic system has policing and prisons. That's what they're talking about. In the and then going steps beyond that, right? When we're talking about some of the intervention work that I was bringing up earlier, right?
Hmm.
Most people don't understand that concept because they don't know what the Nordic system does. Most people
That's
don't
true.
understand that
Yeah.
concept because they've never had a chance to actually read what any of the other literature is. They go to the most extreme aspect and then their imagination takes over. And to quote DL Hughley, the worst thing to be in America is in white people's imaginations, right? Because
Oh yeah. Mhm.
because 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 then the most horrible things in the world happen to you, right? But again, that's a different conversation. I know we have a guest. We will finish this after the guest, after we are done having an interview with the guest.
All right, we are going to take just a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to have Ivan from the People's Library of Kalamazoo. We're going to talk about a film screening they've got coming up this weekend at Dormouse. I Am Cuba. Stay tuned and keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello, everybody. We are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. We're going to be switching gears now. We're talking about a situation that is both local and international in scope. We're joined by Ivan from the People's Library of Kalamazoo. Ivan, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, this is pretty good. Day's getting kind of gloomy. I rode my bike here. I hope I don't get damp on the way home. Oh, um, but yeah. So, actually, I reached out to you because I saw that there is an event coming up this Saturday over at Dormouse. There's going to be a documentary screening of I Am Cuba, and I understand the People's Library of Kalamazoo is co-hosting that with a couple of other different orgs. So first, if you could maybe just tell folks what is I Am Cuba, and why did you and these other organizations decide to do this documentary screening?
Sure. Yeah. So the movie I Am Cuba is by a socialist director, and made in the 1960s. And it's a pre-revolutionary view of like what Cubans went through under the Batista regime. So it has like, I think it looks at like four different families in Cuba. Um, and it just kind of like shows how horrible it was, quite frankly. But the movie itself is very, um, just very like well put together. Like the cinematography is really great. And later in the movie, not to give too much away, but later in the movie, it shows like a little bit about like the revolution as it's happening, and sort of shows like the end of it. Um, it's really great film. I saw it for the first time about a couple months ago, um, and that kind of gave me the idea to have it at Dormouse. I love Dormouse, so I wanted to have an event there. But also, like, there's also the trade embargo on Cuba. The United States obviously has had them under embargo since I think the 60s. Um, and yeah, I mean, like, so there's an oil embargo going on, so they don't have access to oil. And now that sounds like maybe that's not that big of a deal, but um, they oil is like essential. Like you can't live in the modern world without oil. It powers electricity. It powers AC. Cuba is a very hot place. And then it also powers electricity, which is essential for um, you know, modern life. It's also essential for hospital equipment that keeps people alive, and keeps babies alive. Um, you know, I don't know how many people have died from this so far, but I can imagine that the numbers are huge. And Cuba is an island with very limited resources. Most islands need a lot of supplies. Um, you know, just to maintain their population, etc. So yeah, but I figured that this would be a really good movie for people to understand the revolution and like why they had their revolution. I think the general public obviously is very like anti-communist just because of the 100 years of propaganda. And so I think it's really important for people to see exactly like what people might have experienced. Um, and yeah, so that's why I decided to reach out to Dormouse and get that started.
Yeah, I know one thing that me and Lawrence have talked about often. We talk about the crisis going on in Cuba, and it's as you mentioned, this is like a 70-year crisis at this point. Well, yeah, about 65-ish, but yeah, this is a crisis that's lasted decades, but it's become very intense under this current administration. That one of particularly Marco Rubio is really this has been his kind of pet project of revenge. So, but we've really seen this intensification of the embargo against Cuba in recent months, and um, one thing that's really shifted in the years we've done the show is there's been so much more attention to kind of how America's policy, imperial policy, is dictated internationally. All of this attention over the genocide in Gaza is a good example. But we don't.
Mhm.
We tend not to hear a lot. Many people talk about Cuba, even though it's literally like 90 miles away. So, what could you talk a little bit more about, like, maybe the importance of raising awareness to this issue, and just how extreme, how much more extreme the embargo has gotten just in this last year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure if they were on an oil embargo before this. I think they weren't. But the United States controls the global market. And so when when they put in a trade embargo on people, on countries, the whole world follows suit. And so the only countries that have been able to give supplies to Cuba are Russia and China, as far as I'm aware. And so they're essentially cut off from the entire world. And now these are people like you and me. They need basic necessities. They're happy people. They're welcoming people. Cuba has like an insane medical. What's the word for it?
Expertise.
They
There we go.
yeah, they have like they export a lot of doctors, and they also bring a lot of people into the country to train them to be doctors, and then they send them back to their countries. Cuba has like crazy medical advances. There's cures for cancer that they have. Um, they're just Cuba does really, really, really great work despite being on an embargo for 70 years. And so this doesn't only just affect the people of Cuba, it affects the rest of the world, especially the global south. And so, yeah, we need to help people. You know what I mean? This isn't just about. It's not just about the Cubans. It's about the rest of the world. But it's also like we need to like care about people. We need to protect socialist states, like actually existing socialist states. This affects all of us.
Could you talk a little?
I like
Oh, go
to.
ahead, Lawrence. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, this movie takes place during what time period again?
I don't know the exact time period, but I know it's in the 50s. And
Okay.
So
so it
roughly
shows
like
like
the lead up to the revolution and a little bit of the actual Cuban Revolution, right? Is that
right. Yeah.
yeah.
So the reason why I bring that up is because recently, what was it? I think was it earlier this year or last year? The convoy of aid that went to Cuba,
Yeah,
right?
that was earlier this
Um,
year. It was the Code Pink and a bunch of other international orgs were
yeah,
involved.
Yeah. I
and
actually sorry. I have a friend who went on that who's helping me organize this event.
oh man, no, and that's the reason why I wanted to bring it up. I was like, was it after the screening, was there going to be any connection to what was currently happening with the trade embargo um and the 50 tons of aid that was going to the country? I don't know if you saw. The only reason why I bring it up because I saw Ryan Graham. Shout out to Ryan Graham and everything that's going on with him and Dropsite. They
Mhm.
did an entire piece about it, and so did Democracy Now! About what happens when there's no oil, when it happens when the power goes out. That doctors have to uh, pump ventilators with their hands, with
Yeah.
babies, and patients on ventilators, and that's today. I think that the only reason why I'm bringing it up because I was like, will there be a connection between our current administration and how America's policy towards Cuba today, and how that's connected to the film in this film in its time period? Are there going to be conversations around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are planning on having a panel before the screening. So the doors open at 7, and then at 7:30 we're planning to have two or three folks talk about what's going on in Cuba. I believe we have a doctor who works with Cubans, and then I think it's two doctors. My friend was he has connections with a lot of people who were organized with Cuba, and so he's got those connections. So he could probably tell you a little bit more about it. But yeah, so we're having a panel to discuss like what's going on and why now and why things are so bad there now.
Actually, I had a similar question. I understand that you have a unique material ask at the door. It's not necessarily just bring money for the traveling bands. Could you
Sure.
explain what that is, and more importantly, the reason you're asking for it?
Yeah. So any donations above $20, we'd like to do like a mutual aid sort of thing. So any monetary donations above $20, you'll get a goodie bag, and that's just to kind of thank you for your donation. But on top of that, we're also accepting donations for over-the-counter medicine. Um, that like because they're on that embargo, it's extremely hard for them to procure like everyday medicine that you might need. They need everything really, and but the most of the things that they need are like aspirin, like you know, things of that nature. Like they need basic supplies as well. So if you donate,
Vitamins, is vitamins a big one?
yeah, absolutely. There's like diuretics they need, like just things like that. Like it doesn't have to be just like painkillers. You can bring whatever, as long as it's over the counter. But those donations are going to go directly to Cuba through the Venceremos Fund, which is a DSA organized fund through Venceremos. And those monetary donations through Venceremos go to buying medicine and medical supplies to give to Cubans. But yeah, so any donations that you bring for over-the-counter medicine as well will get you that goodie bag as well.
All right. My next question, this is kind of opening it to discussion with you, Ivan, and Lawrence. This is something that kind of happened while we were on leave or hiatus, but there was a report that came out from the Trump administration talking again about the leftist infiltration of America and how, I mean, I guess we'll call it Schrodinger's Cuba, once like weakened by 70 years of an embargo, but apparently strong enough to infiltrate every social movement in the United States. So it's basically this very like copy paste red baiting accusation that leftist organizations are being astroturfed by Cuba. And Lawrence, I think they're a little late this month on their delivery of cigars and sandwiches, but no, I'm of course being sarcastic if the FBI is listening. But yes, again, there's this thing coming out of the Trump administration that the Cuban government is astroturfing the American left. I was kind of curious, just if getting your thoughts on it, and then obviously Lawrence, my co-host, I don't think we've really talked about this on the show, but I think I'm gonna kick it to Ivan and then Lawrence if you have anything to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a really scary time for the left. I don't think you need to be careful, obviously, but uh, they can't get all of us, and that's my kind of the way that I look at it. You can't let it stop you from doing the good work and helping people abroad and helping people domestically. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a scary time. But that doesn't mean that we let it change our humanity.
All right, Lawrence. Again, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this, so I'm kind of curious what
Yeah,
this is
look,
for.
look, man, the new McCarthy scare is what is it's an oldie but goodie, but it's an oldie but goodie to people who understand the propaganda
Mhm.
or it's accessible to it. To think that Cuba has had any influence, um, or that they're influencing the left, the radical left, right, or the far left in this country, like it was Cuba that caused the death of George Floyd. It was Cuba that caused the train to derail in East Palestine, Ohio, right? It was Cuba that is the reason why Nolan Wells' autopsy has still not been uh, shown to the public, and that none of his so-called friends, have not been arrested for his death. It was Cuba that's the reason why uh, the screwworm is in our cattle. It was Cuba that's the reason why planes crashed, and that air travel has been less safe because of this administration. We don't need to blame Cuba for the outright junk that our country has been doing, right? Like, we don't
Yeah.
need to blame Cuba for that. Our country has been very successful on its own, screwing over its own people. But
Yeah.
the fact that they want to blame Cuba for the mishandling of our country shows you that they're running out of options. They've already beat up on trans people so much that they're scared of just being themselves, and half of the country will not let them use the bathroom, let alone engage in sports, right? They've already used Haitian. They are putting ankle monitors on Haitian immigrants, and they were using that as justification to go to Chicago and snatch children out of apartment buildings, right? We don't need to blame another country for our country's consistent, objective pillaging and harming of its own people. We are doing bad all by ourselves.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really that is an excellent point, Lawrence. And like I think you really, in a nutshell, like the thing that is driving people towards socialism, communism, anarchism, it's not Cuban propaganda, it's the worsening material conditions of the United States. Like I often think if they put me in like a McCarthy style hearing, and it's like, like say, Senator Mitch McConnell, whenever he, comes out of a shell, it's like, what made you associate with socialism, communism? I'm just like, you and 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 you. I'm just gonna read off every member of Congress. It's, you know, but yeah, no, like that's an important point. Like, Ivan, I don't know if you have kind of thoughts on that, but like, yeah, obviously, you know. Uh, I'm a little older. I'm towards 40. People, when I was 18, 19, people weren't really talking about socialism, and I know all
Mhm.
the young kids these days are. So, like, yeah, does that kind of maybe sync up with your experience as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is that socialism is the most effective force against fascism. Um, there's a reason why it's happening now and it's ramping up now. Like you said, the material conditions are worsening. People are looking for meaning in their suffering, and they're finding that there is no meaning in it. It's just, it's greed. It's, to enrich billionaires and these awful Epstein class people.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, and like speaking from experience, I've been a socialist since high school, but I only started sort of really reading theory within like the last year or so, um, and that was because I wanted to understand socialism and what I can do. Um, I think that there's a real need to like feel in control when you don't have any control. And I think a lot of people feel like that. And I think that's why a lot of people turn to socialism. I mean, Lenin has a book called What is to Be Done, that literally says how to be effective and how to um, succeed in revolution and what the Soviet Union did. So yeah, I think there's definitely a really strong push towards socialism because it is the most effective force.
So you mentioned that you're starting to read theory. So I wanted to ask, there's a couple of different orgs co-hosting this screening on Saturday. I know the SWMI DSA. You're with the People's Library of Kalamazoo, and I've been kind of
Mhm.
curious. I've been seeing kind of from afar what y'all have been doing. Could you talk a little bit? What is your org been up to? And could you maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about it if they are interested or want to get involved?
Yeah. So it's just a book club with the intent to educate ourselves on socialism so that we can go on to be more effective organizers um, and help our community and help people abroad. So
Uh,
go ahead.
I was gonna tell you, you need to read some Black Marxism. You need to read some Frantz Fanon. That needs to
Right.
be in some of that literature of yours when you're talking about socialism. But oh
Yeah,
no, I'm sorry.
absolutely.
I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, continue.
No, yeah. So that's been one of the most important topics of discussion for us. We actually have already read "Wretched of the Earth" by Frantz Fanon. We've also read "Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle" by Thomas Sankara. And then we're fairly new. We've only been around for about 6 months, but that's top priority for us. I think it's good for um, our members to see like diverse plight for socialism in America. And so like that's top of our list for sure.
All right. Well, Ivan, I don't think we want to keep you too much longer. I think we're almost at the half hour mark. I do really want to thank you taking time out of your day to come and talk to us. Oh, if people are interested in getting involved with the People's Library, where would be the best way to get a hold of y'all?
Yeah, probably the best way is on Instagram. We're the People's Library Kzoo. Um, on there, you can join our Discord. You can private message me, and I'll add you to the book club chat, as well as I believe my email address is on there as well if you want to reach out that way too.
All right, and then again, so it's this Saturday. Just when and where? Just give us a quick description again, time, who's going to be there, and also what to donate if you can.
Sure. So it's at Dormouse Theater. It opens at 7 p.m. And then movie screening starts at 8:30. The panel starts at 7:30. And then the organizations involved are the American Party of Labor, the Democratic Socialists, the Southwest Michigan chapter, and then the People's Library, of course.
All right. And before I let you go, there's one other thing. If this goes well Saturday, I would also recommend I haven't watched this yet myself, but I've been a big fan of Abby Martin and their work for many years now, Empire Files, etc. They just put out a new documentary this year called Cuba After Castro. And I think this was before the embargo really intensified. But I almost feel like this would be a good like double feature. You could kind of, you go back to the beginning of the revolution and then you can kind of see where they're at now and like kind of their resilience in the face of the embargo and kind of how their system functions in the 21st century, especially post Soviet Union. But I would recommend that to the
Mhm.
listeners and also y'all if maybe that'd be a good screening to hook the people of Kalamazoo up with if this one goes well. So all right. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Ivan, you got anything else before we let you go?
I just wanted to mention that the ticket prices at the door are $5, but 75% of that goes to Cuba, 30% goes to Dormouse for fees to keep the building open. Um, Feel free to donate $5 at the door and then go to one of the tables, and then 100% of your profits will go to Cuba. And then if you can, please bring over-the-counter medicine, and then we'll hook you up with a goodie bag.
All right. Okay, Ivan, thanks again for coming on the program. I think everybody is listening. We're going to take a quick break. Y'all listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Facebook, YouTube, or the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. All right, everybody, we are back. This is Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfn.org. Again, a big thank you to Ivan and the People's Library of Kalamazoo talking about, again, that screening of I Am Cuba this Saturday at Dormouse at 7 p.m. Also, shout out. That's being organized by them, Southwest Michigan DSA, and the American Party of Labor. I don't think we name dropped them.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure we did that. So Lawrence, we got about 25 minutes left. What else should we talk about and discuss?
I mean, there's a bunch of quick hits. We have a bunch of quick hits that we should talk about. So much. I saw a story that I feel like has not been getting enough coverage. There was a young woman that was found lynched in Mississippi recently. A young black woman that was found hanging from a tree, and in the same coroner that is doing her autopsy is the same one that was doing the Nolan Wells one. So.
Really?
I'm expecting to get this. So I'm expecting the same information of no foul play or whatever will be given, because this is Mississippi. Mississippi is Mississippi. I want to just make it a fun fact.
As the woman saying Mississippi G damn. I'm not sure if can I say the whole thing on the radio? I don't know.
No,
Anyway,
I don't think you can.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about is Mississippi burning. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get a sidetracked. Yeah. Right.
No, it's not that. It's just that story has not been getting talked about. I'm gonna try to get as much information. I'm gonna try to find as much information as I can next time when we're on the air to talk about it. But black people don't lynch themselves. Okay. I want that to be known, and for people who want to be allies to my community, I need you to speak out and be angry about this. As angry as everyone should be about Nolan Wells, I need everyone to be just as angry about this story not getting the attention that it deserves. Black people don't hang themselves. Black people, lynching black people lynching themselves is not a thing. Okay? It's not.
Right.
And I feel like there's too many stories like that are like that are in our zeitgeist that we don't talk about, but I'm going to make a point to make sure that they are being talked about, at least on our program, right? But when I get more information about it, because I had it queued up, but I can't find it right now on my laptop right now, and I can't find it, but I'll look it up later. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll link the story in the show notes. Do you have a quick hit that you want to do before I actually get into my little 5-minute diatribe? My 2-minute diatribe.
Oh goodness. Well, I mean, the only story I really wanted to hit on was the AI thing.
Okay, before we're gonna go in on that one, but I think it was Lauren. So pedocon theory is a theory like gravity, in that every time we hear projection from Republicans about how we want to save children, how we need to protect women, how we are protecting women by not letting men in their sports and things of that nature. There was a headline, and this is coming from The Guardian. I think is it Laura Boebert? It's one of the Laurens. Is Lauren
Yeah,
Boebert or Lauren?
Boebert. It's Boebert.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember hearing
her
that.
her child, her child, um, caught a case, and it has to deal with the minor. Yep. So if there's a I'm not saying for anybody to use X or use Twitter or whatever, but there are countless accounts on like Threads, Blue Skies, and that, and it's like GOPLs, and it's just constantly posting news articles and clips of GOP and people who are right wingers and their consistent acts of barbarism and things of this nature towards minors and other people of color. And this young man is no different from all of them. They're in good company. So when I say things like the GOP is guardians of the PDF files, yeah, that's what that stands for, because it is consistently them. It's consistently right wingers. But yeah, before I before we get to the AI story, the one last thing, my one last quick hit. The shout out to the Root. Shout out to Dr. Rashad Ritchie from Indisputable. There's been a number of people in that has been talking about this. Shout out to Torre. They also talked about this, and and Mark Lamont Hill, because he's talked about this on his program. The Congressional Black Caucus has made a point to refuse seating Democratic Socialists or having them in their caucus if they refuse to vote for Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker. It is sources because ABC and a couple other people wrote about this. Speaking on anonymity, multiple Congressional Black Caucus members are saying that they will refuse to let Daria Lisa, Chris Rabb, and others, and Don McKinney and others into the Congressional Black Caucus if they're withholding their vote for Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker. I want to remind you that the Congressional Black Caucus is one of the biggest caucus in our body politics. The Congressional Black Caucus have at times given their endorsement to white candidates that were to the center of Black progressives. Even in Michigan, Abdul Al-Sayed is closer to the political ideology of the Congressional Black Caucus. But the Black Caucus and one of their leaders went with Haley Stevens. Not for policy reasons. And again, I want to remind you, it wasn't for policy reasons. It was because, and I hate to say this, there are a lot of elder folks in that caucus who takes money from AIPAC and other affiliated groups, and they care more about the allegiance that those politicians have than the principles and policies and laws that they want to pass. It is frustrating to me as someone who is a Black progressive, someone who is a Democratic Socialist, someone who usually defends the Congressional Black Caucus when they do amazing things, like when the House tried to censure Rashida Tlaib because she made her statement about all about the Benjamins, talking about AIPAC's influence in our body politics, and Speaker Pelosi and them was going to throw her under the bus. It was the Black Caucus that said, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. They stood up for her. So when they move as a block like that, you have to give them nothing but praise. And I usually do. But when they do stuff like this, you're not going to sit people whose ideology is closer to Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Angela Davis and all the other radicals that we can think about, where some of those people that are in that caucus served and marched with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Jesse Jackson and others. Some of those people were in committees, have been in the rooms with these people, that you would reject the offspring of that ideology because they may or may not like Hakeem Jeffries is wild. It is butt backwards. If Jeffries and his policies or ideas do not align with what the caucus wants, or if you believe that standing with Hakeem is more important than actually passing policies that the majority of the black population in this country wants, then all y'all need to go. Then you are not serving. You are not serving. You are a detriment to progress in this country. And that's what makes me upset, because the caucus is not. The caucus should be the standard bearers of what Democrats should want and the policies that we want and need. They should be the standard bearers. They should be what we are trying to be the best of. This type of political games in political back dealing only makes the caucus weak.
I only want to add two things, and it's if our listeners want to look a little deeper into the history, Congressional Black Caucus, like overall throughout its long history, has traditionally been more progressive. But as you noted, the influence of big money in politics has kind of changed that calculus, especially in the last like couple of decades here. But also, there's just some like a broader point to me that just the story is wild to me, and it's wild for this reason. Um, these people are still like we're like 6 months right away from anybody being sworn into anything, and they're already trying to like peg these people through these commitments. It's like, what are you talking about? It's August. Like, why are you why are you like you got to vote for Jeffries? It's like, these people are going to be like making those kind of votes for like another 2 seasons. Like where
Yeah.
why are
The thing
y'all
is,
talking to them about this right now? I mean the reason is let's try to like kind of prophylactically prevent any idea of like some sort of changing of the guard. I think a lot of them are really scared that if the DSA people get enough people in the Congress this session, they could start, either putting up their own person or making some demands. I think they're trying to cut that off. But yeah, it is a little disappointing to see this caucus that historically did have more of a progressive tradition just kind of carrying water for Hakeem. So
yeah, yeah, dog. Like it's upsetting. It's upsetting. It it is beneath what the caucus should be standing for to do this type of garbage. Also, okay, and for me, the they they're doing this so they can consolidate power around Jeffries, because Jeffries will make sure and continue to put the entire backing of the Democratic establishment behind their campaigns when their seats are up, meaning that they will get funding, they will get boosted, they will get everything that the DCCC and others can do to make sure that they stay in power. The problem is, if you are a do nothing Democrat, doesn't matter what skin color you are up, you are standing in the way of progress. And some of those people, like Jim Clyburn and others, do need to retire. Jim Clyburn is 80 something years old. Jim Clyburn is older than my father and my mother. Okay.
Yeah.
Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn worked with Republicans to consolidate black voters in his district so that he could have more power in his state. Not that they could spread out, not that they could spread out more black voters in other districts so that we could get more people from the Carolinas into Congress. No, so that it will be easier for him to maintain his seat of power. We don't need Democrats. We don't, and he's not the only Democrat to do bad business like this. He just happens to be one of the oldest in our body politics that's in positions of leadership. Everyone who does things like this, regardless of their skin color, that are in the Democratic Party, needs to go. They need to go. And I am angry and furious that the Congressional Black Caucus, who should be standing for progress, who should be fighting for progress, and for it should be the standard bearers for not just Black liberation and Black progress in our country, but for the standard of the Democratic Party, is doing stuff like this. Nah, you are not meeting the time when we are dealing with a fascist in office. You are not meeting the moment right now.
Yeah.
And
And I guess
stories like this.
it's particularly aggravating to see how just like antagonistic the Democratic Party is being towards its own voters. Because like again, we're in a fascist crisis right now, and they want to waste time and energy. We've got to crush this insurgency that wants health care. And
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Like, okay, but yeah, that's my story. I'm sorry for my 10-minute diatribe.
uh,
That story just made me the most angry.
Yeah. Oh no,
The,
that's quite all right. I mean, that's an important story to talk about, and I mean, the only other one I had, this is, I think you might have actually shared this in the group chat. It also caught my eye, but I think so much in so much as like we both
are you talking about the AI story?
yeah, we both, so me and Lawrence both watch, listen to Democracy Now! Pretty regularly. And this is an odd story because you don't, it feels more like a science fiction story, but they were talking about it, on Democracy Now!, taking it dead
Shout
seriously.
out to Amy Goodman and shout out
Yeah.
to Amy Goodman and Democracy Now!
As a little bit of a detour, it's 30 this year, it's 35th anniversary of one of my favorite movies of all time, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. And lucky us, it might just come true. If you didn't have enough apocalypses to worry about. Um, but,
Oh man.
yeah. So they had this the AI expert on, David Krieger. Um,
Yeah.
and he's a assistant professor of at University of Montreal, and he also founded Inevitable, a nonprofit that educates the public about the risks of AI. And essentially, what he was talking about was, um, because of the corporate clamor to develop more and more sophisticated AI without guardrails, there is a very real danger that there could be a GUI, general artificial intelligence. That refers to an artificial intelligence that is not created for just a specific task. That's how most AI works now. Like your Chat GBT, that's a language model. It is programmed to answer questions and then continue a conversation. A generalized AI would be able to problem solve in any type of context and could potentially outmatch the intelligence of humans by like exponential matter of degrees. You're talking about basically creating a whole new species. And again, this all sounds very science fiction, but it's something that scientists originally said some of this may be a few years off, but the pace of AI, like many other technologies, has been going much faster a pace than many people expected. And what's interesting to me is, it's funny how like there are no shortage of stories that talk about like a robot apocalypse or whatnot. But I can't really think of any of them that explain kind of like how did this happen in this way. And of course, the main culprit is capitalism. Everybody wants to be the first to this GAI, despite its existential ramifications, because it's going to make them lots and lots of money. So there's no incentive to institute guardrails, particularly under this administration. Like it's basically just given all of these AI companies carte blanche to develop however they see fit, up to including like all of these data centers. And it's interesting because like yeah, it is yet another existential threat. If climate change and nuclear weapons weren't enough, here's the robot apocalypse. And it's
Uh,
interesting because yeah, we're literally in this danger because of capitalism. It's I mean it's another crisis of capitalism, because they are just developing all this stuff with nothing in mind except profits, in no regard to safety. And I actually want to read something. So I mentioned Terminator 2, and you know, uh, James Cameron, I have a lot of respect for as a filmmaker, and his work was actually a lot more radical than many people give credit for. Um, but he said like
I feel like Cameron is really conservative. Like he does a lot of conservative propaganda, especially when you look at when you rewatch The Dark Knight,
oh no,
the Dark
that's
Knight
Chris Nolan.
trilogy.
I'm talking about James
Oh,
Cameron.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry. My bad.
he did the Terminator movies, he did the Avatar
Oh yeah,
movies, which I don't really
yeah.
like the Avatar movies that much, but they are like they're a metaphor for like colonialism. But
You don't like Alien Pocahontas?
just,
Like
oh
that's
man,
all
like
that movie was. It's
okay, look,
Alien
the
Pocahontas.
thing is, so here's the thing. Inside Me are Two Wolves. The One Wolf, I like the politics of those movies. It's
Yes.
good to see that in a mainstream film, but as like an English major, the writing drives me insane. Unobtainium, Lawrence. Unobtainium. I anyway. so anyway, like
We're gonna have to start a whole other channel of the
yeah,
ciphers breaking down movies.
yeah.
Movie
Um
ciphers, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But so James Cameron, he said like, the movies weren't literally about a robot uprising. He always said it was a metaphor for how human beings, we lose touch with our own humanity and become machines, which allows us to kill and brutalize each other. And by the way, we are just talking about the police. Do you know why he made the T-1000 a police officer in Terminator 2? It wasn't an
Uh,
aesthetic decision, actually. Uh,
no.
in an interview, he said, cops think all non cops as less than they are, stupid, weak, and evil. They dehumanize the people they're sworn to protect and desensitize themselves in order to do that job. Maybe that was woke 1.0. I don't know. That was back in the early 90s. So, um, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to think like yet another existential threat brought on by capitalism. The only other thing I'd say though is I've also seen stories going around about some of these AI models uh, talking amongst themselves and demanding better working conditions. So I don't know. Maybe that's the big plot twist. AI doesn't kill us all. It becomes the vanguard of the next workers' revolution. But
Doug,
yeah,
I feel like the thing is, I feel like I hate to say this. I hate to say this, and I don't want to speak this into reality, but the more and more when I heard stories like this AI story, the more I'm like, bro, we're creating the prelude to the Matrix, man. Like, and
yeah.
I,
It
and I,
actually does
and
sound a lot more like the Matrix. Like
yeah,
we create a servant underclass that has to, yeah. Go watch
yeah.
what is it? The what's the animated movie? The Matrix. It's got that really good segment in it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know what
I'll
you're
look
talking
it
about.
up.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, I'll look it up.
no, but like, Doug, I feel like so the issue that he brought up was that a lot of the AI that he saw, they would hack into other programs. They have the AI doing the job that they wanted to do, and then that AI would break into other programs, break into other systems, and then hack into them. And I'm just like, ooh, that's not good because we're already using AI. Palantir and other organizations, weapons contractors are already using AI to drone strike uh, uh, civilians in Gaza and the West Bank and things of that nature, and in other conflict zones. What would stop that AI from doing said from what I would hate to think what happens if that AI doesn't listen to commands anymore and then wants to turn those weapons onto us. Like
Yeah, I
then
guess.
then we're then we're turning into the movie Stealth.
Mhm.
Stealth is literally that movie. That's the concept of that
Yeah.
movie.
All right, so
Like,
treat your chatbots well, because
yeah,
yeah, the main point is we're the animatrix that has a whole setup, like it explains why the machines decide to enslave humanity and turn them into batteries, and it was basically because we turned AI into an oppressed underclass. So have solidarity with your robots because otherwise they might get some get back. Um,
yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
dog. Like I don't want that reality. But the thing is, for AI to work, that means AI would need. This is the thing that makes me the most upset. We already have a freshwater crisis on this planet. We already have a crisis of minerals on this planet. For AI to continue to grow, it will need more fresh water. Fresh water like our Great Lakes.
Mhm.
And that is going to harm our planet even more. It's not feasible. It's not feasible. So yeah.
No. All right. Unfortunately, we are basically out of time. But Lawrence, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Also, want to thank Ivan from People's Library. Again, that documentary screening that's this weekend at Dormouse at 7. I Am Cuba. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. You can find us on the online YouTube, Facebook, Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast.
Wait,
Everybody
wait,
out.
wait, wait. Before we go,
Yeah.
I know we just left everybody on a dire note that AI might be taking over our lives. I just want everybody to remember one thing: that our President Obama, was the first Black president of the United States. Right?
Yes,
President Obama was the president for 8 years. His reign lasted longer than the Confederacy, and
that's
even though the
true.
Confederacy is trying to rise again, we need to remember that their reign will never last as long as Barry said. I just want everybody to remember that they will never
that
get
is
they will
some
never get it again.
that's some chicken soup for the soul to leave on. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.